Might be hard to find some, but don't you shed a tear. Check out the Purple Rock podcast and this is what you'll hear. John will make some dumb jokes, and he likes to yell and curse. And if they're not available, the backup hosts are so much worse. We'll spend the whole time being jerks and telling you you're wrong. And so we got this other jerk to sing you our theme song. It's the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast.
Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast. I am John. My co-host is Andy, the original gang getting back together after all this time. I cannot believe we are finally here talking about Survivor Winners at War, an all-winner season. It has gotten so surreal to witness this thing actually going from words on the internet to pictures on the internet to a few preview videos on the internet to now our favorites, the Legends of Survivor, actually fucking playing Survivor again. Andy, how hype are you?
I am so excited. I've actually been pretty excited, since the announcement, and we kept that energy up through the preseason, which obviously wasn't easy with what we were coming off of. But now it's just all energy, man, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm determined to ride this wave for as long as this show will allow us to.
I tweeted just before the season started. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to put my heart in Survivor's hands and let them break it. I'm all in on the optimism. Go ahead and just commit and prepare to have my heart broken. And man, this episode did not break my heart. It delivered on levels that I've always dreamed that an all-winner season would. It was exactly the sort of thing that we had always hoped for. Or at least I had. I assume you hoped for similar sorts of things.
Yeah, no complaints. We'll talk about the people booted. Were they the people I wanted? Not necessarily, but that's going to be par for the course.
Yes.
We'll be lucky when we get episodes where it doesn't hurt a little bit. But, obviously not the full way it would hurt. And we'll talk about that as well. But yeah, no, look, it's overrated, the idea that you can steel yourself up against disappointment. Like, if this season didn't, deliver, I don't think you can be like, well, at least I didn't get too excited. No. Feel big things now, feel big things later, because the worst is apathy.
Yes.
That's not what you want out of your chosen entertainment. And I think there are people out there, I don't think so for right now, though, but if you feel apathy towards something, that's when it's time to move away, even more so than necessarily anger. So no, this is me to everybody, and I think a lot of people are there. Throw caution to the wind. And could it all go wrong? Of course, there are certainly ways things can go wrong. But right now it's great, and it's fun, and I'm living for it.
You are the fandom. Be fans. Like, I feel like it's been so long since I was this excited. The episode ended, and I felt this profound disappointment that I had to wait a week. Like, when was the last time you felt that with this show?
Yeah, a long time. And frankly, that's not how I am often with many shows.
Right.
Usually I'm like, okay, good, it's time, But yeah, I ended up rewatching parts of this episode, earlier today, and I'm like, you know what, I could go for just watching the whole thing again.
Me too.
I'm not that person. Nope. I hardly ever rewatch Survivor at all. Old seasons, whatever. But no, it was such a great, combination of everything. The tension throughout the whole episode was palpable. And I think the editors deserve just huge credit for that, because they kept the tension going the whole way. And that's not just manipulating us as an audience. I think that was an accurate reflection of what it was like to be there. Everything that people were saying is, oh my God, everything's just moving so fast. I'm having a hard time. I want to throw up. Multiple people were saying this multiple times. And I feel like that came through, because I felt while I was watching it, just like a shake, like a nervous kind of adrenaline pouring through the whole time, because I care about so many potential outcomes.
And I kind of got the sense that they felt, much like I said in the intro, wow, this is freaking surreal. I can't believe this is really happening. Adam, when the women arrived on the beach, was like, whoa, that, like, this is legit. This is really happening. Ben freaking out at playing with Rob. Like, there were so many moments. Ethan going like, holy shit, I'm playing Survivor again. What is going on? I don't know what's happening. All those things just made you feel like they are just as excited as we are. And that was extremely fun to watch. There were so many moments where it just felt like the players were as into playing the game as we were watching them play the game.
Yeah, I mean, like, Survivor is a show that hypes itself all the time. In the preseason, I called, Jeff Probst a carnival barker. He's always hyping this best ever. But, like, this is the biggest season ever, and it felt like it, to your point. The players themselves, like, in that moment and a few others, like, Adam proved his worth in a sense, and that it is kind of nice to have a fanboy out there to be like, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening, because that's where we're at as a fan community as well. So yeah, and, like, beyond, like, the excitement, like, that was a huge thing, the tension, just the whole way through, the point where, yeah, like, when it's over, it's kind of like, and it might be, like, 14 episodes of that. I mean, eventually some malaise will set in as the patterns will start to, emerge, but I bet it'll feel like that a lot because there's so many different rooting interests. There was also, like, a heavy nostalgia factor, especially early on in the episode, and I'm so happy the show leaned into it. I'm happy that they recognize that this is an achievement for them. This is an achievement for fans. And I hope throughout the season, they make sure to have, like, fan service moments and, like, genuine ones that I felt like tonight, rather than, like, forced ones you get, like, in, like, Ghost Island or something. Because, like, this is a big thing for us. Like, for me, myself, a lot of people, but intermittently, like, this has been 20 years of my life, spending time with this thing. Let's celebrate.
Yeah. I mean, the flashbacks, totally indulging in the nostalgia, like seeing these players from their original season and then how they look now, talking about their life outside the game and all these different things, like, incorporating Survivor into the world in which it actually exists within the show was just awesome. Like, it was the way to properly introduce a season like this. I mean, kicking it off with a champagne toast, great.
Yeah.
And then immediately leading into a challenge, like, okay, game on. That was fun. Let's do this. Was like, oh shit, we're going to hit the ground running. I tweeted this too, like, I'm not a challenge person. I don't really care. Often during challenges, I'll sit there and play on my phone and, tweet something out. I was invested in the challenge. I didn't even know who to root for. I was just really excited to watch it. I was like, oh, I went that way. Wait, no, but then if they went, I couldn't decide who my rooting interests were, but I was just really enjoying watching the challenge play out. And that's not me. Yeah. That's not who I am.
Yeah. And just like that opening scene, I think will show, like, if this season is doing it right, it's the balance. It's like, yeah, the heavy nostalgia of, I can't believe we're spending these time with these folks. I can't believe we've been here and gone through this. Mixed with, yeah, but this is still, like, epic level gameplay. And hopefully that's what we get all season long, that we, take time to appreciate what's happening and appreciate these people who've, given parts of their lives shared with us. And that's I didn't mean to say for us. They're not soldiers. One is, but that's not what he was doing. But yeah, and that we've had, welcomed into our homes and all that. But at the same time, like, it's time, this is game time. We're playing for $2 million and, hopefully they keep doing some fun and exciting things. And I'm not, I don't think there's a lot of anti-side right now. I think the feedback was overwhelmingly positive for this episode. But just like, as fans, like, let's just bask in this. Like, it's 40 seasons, is a lot. And, they are full on celebrating. They're bringing people back for all the way from season 2. And let's, as a community, for as long as the show lets us, let's enjoy this for us too. And, like, I felt like a big part of that was just, like, reuniting with some of these characters again. Like, I found it genuinely touching, both, from their perspective, but also from mine, when, like, you see, like, Parvati talking about what it's like, now leaving her baby at home, and, how Amber and Kim were struggling with it, and Tyson was relating. Like, these people are grown.
It was really almost like a reunion vibe, and at the same time, they're still playing in the moment. All of this stuff, them talking about their lives and things like that, that's also part of the game. And it was like I said, it was so great how it weaved in just everything. All their lives, like updates on what's been happening with them. I mean, generally pretty vague stuff. I think Ethan, they dove into a little bit more because it's a little more fully fleshed out story. And what a story it is. We'll get to that later, I'm sure. But it was just awesome to watch. There was some super fan types from the newer crowd that were like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. The older crowd that's like, oh man, I don't know if I'm ready for this game. It was working on so many levels. I don't get how you could, as a longtime fan of the show, have invested potentially up to 20 years of your life tuning into this show and then not be like thrilled with what you just watched. This was great.
Yeah, and it shows, like, the difference between reality television and other things. Because in scripted, yeah, we see, like, actors age and all of that, but they're still, like, playing a character, right? These are scripted, but, like, these are these people's lives, and they are different. And you know what's also different? Mine.
Yes.
You know, like, yeah, my life is incredibly different from when I first saw Amber on television, or Ethan, or even Danny, or frankly, and I don't think a lot of people really clued into this until maybe this episode, but Parvati, 10 years, man. Like, my oldest child is 10 years old. Like, that is a long time since she was actually competing. And, you know, I said this in comments, and I think one of the reasons why Parvati doesn't feel like she's in the distant past is because this, you know, online community has grown such then that we've kind of kept her like modern in our minds because we're always talking about,
yes,
you know, Parvati and heroes versus villains and Micronesia and all that. But that's 10 years is a long time.
It really is.
To give you an idea, there were no iPhones or whatever. But more than that, like most people, like TV shows don't last that long.
And it was funny because when Mike Hirsch and I were pitching some songs that we ended up using in our season preview podcast, we got to Ethan, and the thing I thought of with Ethan was, man, he was on so long ago. Like, what even was the world back then? And within the song that Mike and I worked on, we mentioned the things that didn't exist back then because it really was a whole different world. And so it's wild to watch the evolution of these people that we haven't seen in over a decade.
Yeah, and just like reintroducing them and like, the celebratory nature of it. And I'll actually, real quick as an aside, I'll note that like right now for this episode, I don't really care about any of the recent winners. Yeah, and like frankly, like we were already low on a lot of them anyway, but like even the ones I'm cool with, it's just like, whatever, you guys were here 2 years ago. Like right now, I'm more invested in the people I haven't seen in a while. Or even like some of them we obviously, like Sandra or Rob, we keep seeing, but actually seeing them play like this, it's a little more remarkable. Like, wow, like, they've really changed. But it just kind of a thought that struck me, just what this season kind of represents, is kind of it's a little kin to like Infinity War and Endgame, the Avengers movies, of which you actually saw one of them. Of like Survivor, and that this is both a culmination of, again, like 40 seasons, 20 years, and a conclusion, because for a lot of these people, this is it. This is the last time. This was the one thing, the bullet in the gun that Survivor had to bring them back. So it's like a conclusion, but it's also like, this is going to keep, there's a season 41 going to come up later this year. Like the series keeps going. So it's both like kind of like a series finale, but more like, I guess a closing of a chapter. And I really hope that we'll get that feeling throughout, and it'll be a rewarding one. And I plan on kind of cherishing this last ride with some of these people, because the last time, like the last time we saw a lot of them, we didn't know it would be the last time. But now, like this is the last time we're going to see Parvati or Boston Rob or whatever. So, I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah. And I mean, I genuinely believe a lot of them when they say, this is it for me. It feels right. I mean, Sandra has said she'd answer the call at any time. But I mean, when Rob says, yeah, no, this is really it, I think this is really it. I don't even think that Amber was all that gung-ho. According to the interviews Rob gave, she kind of had to be talked into it. This is it for her. Like, we are really getting to conclusions for some of these people, and it's both awesome to celebrate them, sad that we're going to lose them again, but great at the same time to get like the little, the champion send off, the Kobe final tour where everybody's giving him jerseys and he's giving them like, I probably should have used a less depressing example.
Yeah, Dwayne Wade,
exactly. Anyway, it's nice. It's a cool send off for them. And I think the show is handling that really, really well. Like, it's letting us be reintroduced to these people, sharing in their joy, and then also preparing us, or in some cases already starting to, get ready to let them ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, because, like, for a lot of people, like, all of these players, they'd say they'd never play again, but there was always, like, that one caveat. Well, if there was no winter season, right?
Right.
So that's what this is. So I don't know if season 50 he can pull something else out that'd be like, okay. And frankly, they'll all be 5 years older by then. So, so that's kind of where I'm at. And that's just a mindset that the beginning of the episode put me on. But the big takeaway of the new stuff, oh man, we got Rob and Parvati teaming up.
Ooh. Okay. So I did read Dalton Ross tweeted out something like, I got this interview with Boston Rob and you're going to want to take notes. It's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Boston Rob, he's a great Survivor player. I have not generally over the years been super impressed with his interviews. He's pretty clinical, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not usually all that interesting, but man, I ate this thing up. Rob was like breaking down the game. It was seriously like watching, a NFL pregame show or something like that. Where like, okay, we're going to look at the tape. Here's what happens. Blah, blah. And Rob is telling you, okay, I know that this person's going to need something like this. I know that this person, I have to approach them this way and offer them. Like, he really did break down exactly what he was going to do while also leaving room to maneuver and be like, okay, if this situation comes up, I will do X. I know I can't count on this, but I'm going to try this. Like, you can see in that interview why he's so good at this. And he mentioned in the interview, you know what? Parvati and I, we might just need each other. Like, yeah, we don't have that pre-existing long-term friendship or working relationship, but I feel like Parvati is practical enough to realize we need each other. And in that first conversation, when we see them talking about it, I feel like both of them understood exactly what was happening. Like, it wasn't even necessarily explicitly said, but it was kind of like, okay, you get me, right? Each of us on our own are doomed. But if we're together, we maybe have a chance.
Yeah, and, just a thought I had, and we don't know how long this will last. Like, I think a thing we're going to try to do for as long as the season allows us, celebrate what we got instead of worrying about what's to come.
Yep.
But when has there been another duo this big? Like, typically, like, in returnee seasons, players of this caliber don't team up.
Nope.
They don't. They go after one another. I guess, like, a close one would be, like, I don't know, Parvati and Russell, but obviously that's a very different thing.
Yes.
And obviously there's been some great duos, like, similarly talented players in their first season, but like all-time greats, two of them like working together. Oh my God. It was everything I wanted and more. And, I'm excited about, what that could be. I don't think they're out of the woods. I don't know if they ever will be.
Yeah. And I would say like something like Parvati and Sari, you would think that would work, but at the same time,
that's pretty
in
close.
Micronesia, Parvati wasn't yet Parvati. Like, it wasn't
exactly.
It didn't feel as monumental as this. Like, this is seriously two of probably the top 5 survivors ever being like, you know what? It makes sense. Let's just run this game. And it's, wow. It just feels that monumental.
And that's what we've always wanted, right? It's like, stop taking each other out, work together, and then take each other out. Like, it's still a game where you have to take each other out. We're not, against that. It's just, when you guys look to take each other out, Sandra and Tony, before the season finale or season premiere is over and Game Changers, it just means you're all gonna lose.
Yep.
And we don't want that. We want to, continue to bask in the greatness that's available to us. And yeah, we got it. And we got it like that. They were both like, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. Let's do this. So, and it showed, we got examples from both of them and we can get into them both a little, how, their greatness on display, but more than like, how good they are as game players. What I really appreciated is like the scene with them, as everybody's, manically not choosing anything and they're both just like, doing the Paul Rudd, look at us, who would ever thought, like, why is nobody going after us? It also just showed how measured and relaxed they are at playing towards the cameras. It was just a brief conversation, but they know there's cameras in their face. This is a scene, and they played their roles so well. And that is another reason why they are the greatest survivors ever. Is not only are they really good at playing, they are just so good at TV.
I was so giddy with that scene. That was the absolute, as soon as the show ended, I saw the preview for next week and I'm like, okay, I gotta go back and watch that scene. Rewound right to it because I was sharing in that joy. I was just as absurdly giddy as they were. They were like, I can't believe this is happening. And I was similarly thinking, I can't believe this is happening. As a viewer, it felt like a shared moment, and I wasn't even there with them. It was amazing. It was the highlight of the whole night for me, and there were many highlights that it had to beat out.
And another thing like that scene, and everything leading up to it really underlined for me, is because it was crazy. Why are they not being targeted, and why is nobody picking a target? Do we have to play for all of these 10 people? And that also just plays his strength because another thing about Rob and Parvati is both they are incredibly egotistic, right? They are both people that are powered on their own arrogance, and so they like. Not only feeling like they're better than everybody, but that people are lesser, and they can commiserate about that.
Yes.
That's why Rob and Sandra got along in Heroes vs. Villains, because they could be like, well, get a load of these idiots. And now they both have that in each other. And again, Parvati and Russell had the same dynamic. But that modern winners, and it really struck me in this camp especially, are never the most dominant early game players of their season anymore, because it's such a head chopping off contest early in Modern Survivor. There's a lot of talk about, these modern players are they know the speed of the game, unlike these old schoolers and all that. And absolutely, the game is faster. It's part of why everybody complains that they don't like editing as much, as they don't know how to edit Survivor anymore. It could be that they can't edit the way they used to because people are doing so much more than they used to do. So yes, we lose moments when there's so much plot to go around. But I think part of it, the winners of these seasons aren't necessarily the people that are going out there and attacking, right? The people that are attacking in modern seasons are often taken out. So the winners are the ones that were all able to step back and wait for the dust to settle. And I think we were seeing that on this tribe when it was like, all right, pick someone. And they're all like, well, that's not what I do. I wait for somebody else to pick someone and either agree or get that person taken out for daring to mention somebody. And nobody wanted to do anything. And the old schoolers are like, can we just pick someone? That's what we do.
And Danny mumbles, I guess Adam? Is she really just is really nobody going to say anything? Is this how that goes now? Does no one talk? I mean, are we not voting out Adam? It was great. It was an awesome juxtaposition of the old school, new school vibe there. Also, I mean, you mentioned the plots and the changing game and stuff like that. Another amazing Rob scene. Rob talking with Danny, I think it showed the flexibility of both of them, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Danny so clearly got busted. We'll actually talk a little bit more about that scene later, because that was also great. But she was clearly busted. She admitted to Rob, hey, you know what? Yeah, I did throw your name out. And then there was this amazing transition where they both kind of met in the middle and were like, you know what? I get it, but maybe we can just work from there. We'll build a level of trust from this. And I was talking to Em Scout and BK about this. She was really impressed with Danny in that situation. I was really impressed with Rob, and it was for similar reasons. Em was saying, normally you come after Rob, he does not fuck around. You are gone first. He heard that you're coming after him. You're his first target. This season, Rob seems to be adapting his game to be like, look, I know I'm the biggest threat. I need options. They may not be ideal, but I need to find a way to work together with people. Even if I can't trust them completely, I need something. And I think that they met halfway, and it was awesome to watch Rob's game changing like that. And Danny having a game for the first time in 15 years since she's been on TV was also fascinating to watch. It was a really cool scene, and it was all done in 45 seconds.
Yeah, and it also kind of showed that thing I was talking about, because what's Rob doing in that situation? And, the other one, he's being assertive. He's actually just saying things. He's just talking. And I don't think with these modern players, especially, but especially the ones that were able to hang around and win, they're not used to that. They're used to lies and then going back around and scurrying and then talking to somebody and, back channels and all that. Rob just went up and asked. And, I think that's also a Rob technique of, if I press you, let's see how you react. And, I think people, underestimate the value of intimidation, especially in the early phase of Survivor. I think people discovered pretty quickly. It's I don't know if I'm ready to take out Rob. Forget the challenge stuff and the camp stuff. Just that's a big move. Yep. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. And he's not going to make it easy for me either. He's going right up and pressing me for information. It's we're really talking about this. And yeah, Danny stood her ground and she's yeah, throw your name out. Threw a bunch of people's names out. And yeah, it was just great there. And on the other side, and I kind of structured our breakdown for the losers of the first vote and then the losers of the second one. But you saw this too. You saw the new school players kind of kicking around, having ideas, maybe this person or this person. And then when it's go time, it's the people that are more assertive. It's, Yul, who's, right away was putting targets on people. Sandra, all right, let's not mess around. And it's this person. Whereas you could have easily seen Wendell or Sarah or Nick kind of be oh, this person, who do you think? Who do you think? Eventually, the people that are a little more comfortable with this, maybe who were used to playing at the slower speed, be yeah, but let's just say something and go with it.
Yeah. And I thought also the Rob move with Danny, and also later on, the Yul move with Sophie worked really well because it was very transactional. I need you because of this. You need me because of this. This makes sense. It was the same sort of thing with Rob and Parvati, linking up. It was just, Rob in that brief conversation essentially othered the new schools, was okay, look, I get it. You don't have connections to all these people. We're from a different era. He's showing her that he's got something of her in him. Hey, we have this common bond. We aren't them. So then she's oh man, I'll come into the flock over here with these old school players that are more like me. I just thought, this shit's a masterclass, man. He's so good.
Yeah, and it's just what you talked about on Redemption Island, right? You need to find shared traits with people, and if you don't have it, you pretend it. That's why, he was praying with them until he was able to take them out. And that's why, it was important to break up Matt and Andrea, because you can't pretend to have the bond that they have. And yeah, no, it was absolutely that. And I'm sure if he's talking to somebody else, it's going to be a different bond.
Yeah, and that's what I like, is that his game is very adaptable. The man is a savant at the game, and
yeah.
I was never I never necessarily loved watching him play. I think now he's reached that, man, I was going to make another Kobe reference, the later career Kobe, where I get what you're saying. Always rooted against him. But then late career, I was man, I just respect the guy at this point. He's just he's done it for so long. He's so good at it. You just have to shrug and be man, he's just good. And that's how I feel with Rob. That's the same way. I was never over the moon to watch him play. He was always decent. I didn't necessarily complain, but I didn't love it. And now I'm just man, this guy's just so good, and I want to watch him continue to be good.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I've always been. Obviously, we have fun and oh, he loves him, all this, but it's why I became such a fan is just watching, and it was, the double dip of All Stars and then Amazing Race. It's just it's weird that somebody can just be good at this thing that was just invented a few years ago, competitive reality TV. But for whatever reason, he has the collection of skills, and that, extends to, being able to play these weird little games and puzzles they put together. And it's just 25 years ago, this wouldn't have been a role, he never would have been able to make this potential because this thing didn't exist. But suddenly, yeah, it's just there, and he's just good at it. And will he win this season? Probably not. Winning is a poor metric for greatness, unless you truly believe that everybody on this season are amongst the greatest. But one nice thing about this season is nobody's bad. We'll get to probably, the person who had the worst play of the night, but like, they all have a level of competence, and I'm going to be excited to see it this. But yeah, no, that scene really showed it off, and then later in challenges, it's just like, yeah, it's just cool to watch people be good at stuff.
It is. And one of the unexpected surprises for me, sticking with the old school, was Ethan. Like, Ethan was essentially a blank slate for me. Like, I'd seen Africa. I'd actually done a rewatch of Africa probably, man, it's been several years now, but he was fine.
Yeah, he was a nice kid.
Yeah, I wasn't over the moon for him. The season was, a little depressing because it's not an ideal location. They were starving. It was pretty miserable a lot of times. But man, just seeing him and seeing the flashbacks and the nostalgia and like him geeking out over playing and being like, I can't believe this is happening. I never thought I'd be here. Like, there were emotional moments. There were moments where you're like, you feel invested in his story already. And I didn't expect it. I really thought that I would just be at best indifferent towards Ethan. And now I'm on board. Now I'm like, man, I'm not going to root for Ethan. But if Ethan wins this season, I'd be like, you know what? I'm okay with that outcome.
Yeah, early in the like in our preseason podcast, we were both, fairly, like, we were both like, hey, it's cool that Ethan's here. We're glad he's alive, and yeah, it's nice that somebody's older, but like, we didn't have high expectations, but I'm loving Ethan. He has just the great energy about it. Like, he is, and I think, it comes from his story. He knows that this is, just being here is a major achievement in his life, and he's here to enjoy it. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to roll over. Like, he's in there. He's mixing it up. He's recognizing that this is a lot, but he's going to do it. And if he won this season, it would probably be as a result of something spectacular happening, because I don't know how you let that guy get to the end. Because how do you not fight for the guy who, when he finishes his story about, like, I should be dead, and I was in my hospital bed just, wishing one day I could be here. And also talking about the first time I was here, I was so moved by the experience that I started a charity. Like, that guy, beats everybody. Yeah. But if that happens, that means he did something amazing to get there. So yeah, absolutely, I would be on board. But more, I just really enjoyed him. I enjoyed, he was one of the most wide-eyed people of the cast, even though I believe he is the second oldest.
Yeah, I mean, it was really fun to find myself being interested and invested in his story, which I did not expect. He definitely exceeded my expectations. And while we're on the topic of exceeding expectations, I had the lowest of bars set in my head for Ben. Ben was shockingly fun in this episode, to the point that I felt like he is the new JT. Like, he is this season's JT already. I'm calling it now.
Yeah, I actually loved what we got out of Ben this episode. And part of it is because he played the role of audience surrogate. Like, he, like, his confessional about what happened with Rob, it was like, yeah, I get it. It's probably the worst move that we saw in the episode, but he delivered it with, like, such, like, it was fun. Like, he was like, oh, that was stupid. Like, self-awareness. It was like, where's this guy been? Like, and frankly, like, there was some of this guy before everybody turned on him in his season. And then, when he wasn't talking about, like, coal and the food. But, yeah, no, I thought it was a lot of fun seeing him, mess something up and, immediately recognize it. I thought the scene, like, as he's getting pressed by Boston Rob, and Rob's like, why would they want to vote me? And he's just like, because you're Boston Rob, dude. Like,
and I also enjoyed that, in that scene, he says, man, you're really good to his face.
Yeah, he was recognizing, like, oh man, this is all getting away from me, but in the moment, no, like, if we get that Ben throughout, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I really enjoyed Ben this episode.
It's been a long time claim of mine. Like, I'm okay with you not being good at this game as long as you're entertainingly bad, and him screwing that up was entertainingly bad.
And to give him some credit, after he picked up the pieces a bit, and I actually felt like he did a few good pieces of business afterwards. He decided that he would rather have Adam than Denise, and he was able to start working with Adam and then moving it around. He doesn't seem to be a target, so he isn't doomed. But yeah, if every once in a while we just get confessionals from him being like, oh man, I'm totally outclassed by this group here, I'm okay with that too.
I always leave room for these players to improve in their second season. I definitely was not expecting it of Ben, and I was extremely pleasantly surprised from that first episode. I hope we get more of that.
All right, so question. Which was more heartbreaking for you? Was it losing Natalie as the first vote or not losing Adam?
Oh, the latter by far. I was over the moon when his name got thrown out. I was like, oh man, I can't believe it. Like, this isn't supposed to happen. The season is not supposed to go exactly as I would want it to. And Adam's name's getting thrown around. I was disappointed that he was Denise's new Malcolm.
Yeah.
I was like, no, that needs to be replaced. Like, Denise needs to come with this crew that I care about, Rob and Parvati and Danny and Ethan. Like, Denise needs to be with them. And so I was disappointed. Then I was like, oh man, if she loses Adam, this can happen. This is amazing. You know, they'll shift her over to their side. It'll be great. And then the vote flips over to Natalie. And I was like, oh man, double whammy. Like, crap.
Yeah. So where I was at is I actually was okay with it suddenly being Natalie because I was, like I wrote, it's like, it's not going to be Adam. I'm not going to be that lucky. And I didn't want it to be Denise. So, and that's actually something like this episode, and I think this whole season is going to be, is it's really going to put into perspective, like, where your real feelings and rankings are,
yes.
Right? Like, I like Natalie. She was great, But then it's like her or Denise is like, you can die in a fire, Natalie. We got to protect Denise, And we're going to get to the other vote that was, very much like this for you. So, it was, why couldn't it have been Adam? But it's just like, And I mean, in some ways I get it. It's like, if you save Adam, I feel like you got Adam for a bit. Like, I think he might just be so grateful that, like, it worked out that, he might not be so excited to jump into, like, a counteroffensive right away after having, seen his survivor life pulled in front of his, in front of his eyes. That's probably not the phrase, but you get what I'm trying to say. Now, was it the right call to get rid of Natalie, or should they have just gone for something easier and got rid of Adam or, Denise?
So, obviously, my entertainment rooting interests were that they take out Adam. But
yes.
We did discuss in our Purple Rock chat today that there was confessionals shown, the voting confessionals, and Parvati's answer, or her confessional as she was giving her vote, was that, sorry, Natalie, didn't want it to be you, but you are the glue that holds Jeremy and Michelle together. And upon hearing that, I was like, okay, perfect answer. I totally understand why you took out Natalie, and I'm 100% on board. Don't like losing Natalie, but at the same time, I get it, and it's a sacrifice I will make for this.
Yeah, to keep Michelle from having any level of awareness or power, some sacrifices have to be made. To be clear for people, those voting confessionals, you did not miss it. It wasn't on the episode. Dalton Ross from Entertainment Weekly was on site. He, saw people give their confessionals. He posted all of those and, his recap, which, I mean, we don't normally read a lot of Dalton Ross stuff, but I really liked this week, and largely because it was just a bunch of behind the scenes, information that we wouldn't have had otherwise, and a lot of good stuff. And frankly, if you left this episode wishing that you had more, there's more there. And it just shows the genius of Parvati, right? Like, I'm not, we were just thinking of the simple one, the Jeremy Natalie connection, and it's like, well, there's value in breaking that up. Is there some hypocrisy? It's like, that's a duo you worry about instead of the husband and wife? Sure, but Rob doesn't have to worry about hypocrisy. He needs to worry about, not him, someone else. Once it starts to look like it's going to be three people, and this could be a hinge. Whereas, as I was saying with Adam and Denise, like, the fear of God that was put into them might be enough that maybe they can be brought in. Well, will, Parvati, Rob bring them in, or will, Ben, Danny, somebody else bring them in? We don't know. Let's find out. But Jeremy and Natalie weren't operating as a pair that needed to be brought in. They were operating as a pair that got to decide which way they went. And, this is Rob taking out Matt as soon as he comes back, so that, Matt and Andrea don't really have choices anymore. It could work out like that. So I think it was probably the right call, even if it wasn't my optimal, choice.
Yeah. Again, I think what it does is sort of creates free agents out of Jeremy and Michelle. and I'm fine with the Parvati, Rob, Danny, Ethan alliance picking up either of those. Like, I'd probably prefer Jeremy, but I'll accept Michelle as well.
Yeah, the great fear is that, like, and we saw a bit of this the next day, is that it alerts to people. It's like, oh man, did we just get, played by Parvati and Rob? What are we doing? But at the same time, like, they weren't the ones that, like, pushed for this. We don't know who made the final call. I have no trouble believing that it was them, if for no other reason that it seemed like nobody wanted to make the final call. Frankly, like, I wonder if Natalie and Jeremy had just, like, really picked between Adam and Denise. They would have been like, cool. But it's like, well, they're flaking all over the place anyway. Let's just grab somebody. Let's take out Natalie. And I'll say, I like the symmetry of her going out first with her twin sister having done it, because I always have been amused by the symmetry that season was bookended by, genetic duplicates. It just shows kind of how weird Survivor is. And now it's like, oh, now they've both gone out first. But yeah, it's like, so it's a little dangerous in that people now might be like, oh man, they're really here to play. And Jeremy, is out there. He might want revenge. But, it's always going to be dangerous for Parvati and Rob. So that's not something you can really avoid.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing, is that Parvati and Rob are almost playing with house money, because the odds are so heavily stacked against them. No one expects them to win. So they can actually be a little more aggressive, because it's like, you know what? What are we going to do? Pretend that we're not good? No one's going to believe that. You can't just, like, suggest you've lowered your level of threat by somehow getting more inept at this game. No one's going to fall for that. So, you know what? Go out there, be the king and queen, run the show. And again, like you said, we don't know necessarily that they called this shot, but I feel like they were at least behind the scenes running this plan.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a season where people can't hide. They can't hide what they're good at, other than the people who naturally are going to be hidden, the people that, of course, people don't necessarily believe are really good at something. But you saw that in the other tribe. Wendell's like, I'm not going to be the guy making stuff. And they're like, what are you doing? You're going to make us something, Wendell. Like, we're not here for that. So yeah, if somebody starts trying to dog it on a challenge because they don't want people to think that they're a challenge to it, it's not going to work. They're all just, I think these winners would be like, this is stupid. And frankly, you trying to be less than what people know about you will just make people more suspicious of you, make you a target, like you're holding out on us. Maybe, like, the one area that it can work on is maybe Tony can make people think that he's less of a wild man, but frankly, that already seems like it's starting to go out the window, too.
That story is starting to fray at the edges already.
So, and I'll say for me, I'm all for that, because I hate the forced mediocrity of the game, and, it's been something I've had to live with since it started. But yeah, it's like, what? Instead of trying to convince everybody you're not great, why don't you find out what being great can do for you? Because I think this will be a season that will try to reward as much greatness as, as possible. In the same way that, like, me suddenly viewing Natalie as an acceptable loss because, the alternative felt like Denise, and that the kind of mental math and where you stand this season is putting at, the next vote out. How did it feel for you when it seemed like it was between Tyson and Kim?
Oh, man. So I told you before the episode started, all in, I was overflowing with optimism, and Kim's name comes up, and then it's Kim or Tyson, and just got the level of gut punch of that. I was like, no, it can't be one of them. It can't be. They can't be a second boot. It's not fair. How is this season doing this to me already? And so then when it was Amber, someone that I was very interested in seeing play, I mean, we talked about this with Ethan. It was nice also to catch up with Amber, and I got invested in Amber's story too. Like, man, I wonder what Amber would play like. It'd be cool to see what she could do in a season like this, even though odds, of course, highly stacked against her. I was invested in that story. But at the same time, if that's the sacrifice that needs to be made to keep Tyson and Kim, what am I going to do? I'm giving up Amber 100% of the time.
Yeah, whereas for me, I mean, like, I was resigned to losing Amber. Like her survival on that tribe was going to take a lot. Or, frankly, the failure of her husband on the other side. So, it was but at the same time, once she left, I was like, like in the early challenge where we didn't, or both of these challenges where we weren't quite sure who we wanted to go. Now I want that tribe to go to tribal council all the time. I don't care. It's all about protecting Rob now and seeing how Amber can do it. He lost his, backup, I guess I lost a fantasy player and the draft I took way, way, way serious, of course. But yeah, so that's where it's at. But yeah, no, like, it was rough seeing that happen to Kim. And I want to make clear that I'm not putting any of this on her, and not just because of my extreme bias, but it's just like, that's just the way it was. People were like, she met people at a poker event once, and that was it, man. It was a wrap for right now. And these people, probably wisely, at least for this vote, maybe not long term, but we'll see. Long term in, Modern Survivor is a really tricky wicket to figure out unless you got, the science of Edgic, of course. But she couldn't talk to anybody. Nobody wanted to talk to her. They were freezing her out. They're like, no, you're not going to do it. You're not going to, like Sandra laughed in her face.
Oh, that was brutal. Kim's like, I feel like it's me. And Sandra just laughs. There's a brief pause, and then she laughs some more. And Kim's like, oh, her face, just all the blood rushes out, and she's like, oh fuck, this is the end. I have no room to move. There's nothing I can do in this situation. And she said in preseason interviews the same thing. She's like, you have to be resigned to the fact that you're probably going to get voted out. It's beyond likely that you will not win this season, and you just have to accept that. But at the same time, I can totally get her frustration. She played one poker game, and she's maybe shared a few tweets with some of these people. Meanwhile, Sarah and Tony played an entire season together, came back, played part of another season together, and Sandra and Tony also have a connection. There was other connections that were much more solid on that tribe, and yet all credit to people like Sandra and Yul for making that narrative stick, that this poker alliance is the most dangerous thing that we have to take out. Well done.
Yeah. And that's kind of the underlying thing of this season is that, it was tough and, completely unfair that Kim was having to deal with that. She's getting completely boxed out for even having a chance to do anything because, somebody decided to, have a poker show and invite survivors because they figure, there's 100 poker shows out there. If we have people that were on TV once, maybe somebody will watch ours. So yeah, that's really frustrating, but at the same time, it's happening as a result of superior gameplay of other people I like, and I feel like that's going to be the trade-off. It was very tough to lose Amber, and we'll get back to that in a second. It was very tough to see, Kim and Tyson in this situation. Less so tough for me to see Tyson in this situation, just because, I also find him amusing when he's falling on his face and he's getting, a bit knocked down a peg from his arrogance, in part because, he's a substitute for you. So it's tough to see that, but it's a result of awesome play from Yul, who I love. And that's what the season's going to be about. And it's it sucks to see Nick succeeding, but Nick's success is probably more Yul's success right now. So, yes. and I think because there's so many people I care about on some level, it's always going to be that. It's going to be tough to see the failures, but it'll probably be, the result of other successes that I'm happy about.
Right. And that's what you're signing up for with a season with this level of talent. We dealt with this in Heroes versus Villains too. You didn't want to lose almost any of those players. It was always oh man, that's too bad. We're losing, Suri, we're losing Tom. We're these people that you freaking love to watch play Survivor. But it's going to happen because look at this cast. They have to go against each other. So there's going to be some casualties that are among your favorites. Possibly your favorite ever. Who knows? And I made this comparison to Wiggler. It's when you go out for some amazing, expensive meal and the food is so good and you're like, oh, I can't believe that was wonderful. Then you get hit with the bill and it's this sinking feeling. It's the exact same thing. It's wow, I can't believe what I'm watching. At the same time, oh crap, I'm going to lose this player. Devastating. And I'm at least glad the level of devastation wasn't as high here because somehow the target moved off of Tyson and Kim.
Yeah, and I mean, the somehow is that neither of them were as threatening as Rob Mariano.
Right.
And it sucks that Amber is the stray, but that's kind of how it is. Like, people want to make a move on Rob, but you're a little afraid to do it if he's on your on your tribe. It takes might take somebody with the ego of Russell, frankly, to do it. And, frankly, had nothing to lose because he was so down in numbers when, he was starting to make his moves against Rob. And the ego party, I don't want to take anything away from her. And also, when you get rid of Rob in the tribe phase, you lose other things. None of that's true if you're getting rid of Amber. And I'm not saying that she contributes nothing, but you're getting a shot at Rob without having to really risk taking a shot at Rob. He can't do anything to you right now. You're not losing, his camp, and, what's the other thing they do? Challenge, contributions. So, I mean, of course, her chance was that the Poker Alliance would succeed.
Right.
And for whatever that is. There wasn't enough of it, in part because Sandra wasn't a part of it. It was one of the calculations, if, she or Rob were having chances, that we were hoping that the connection that Rob and Sandra clearly have, would benefit, the Tyson and Kim and Amber. And no, did it not.
So let's do some quick talk about Sandra, because Sandra gave a confessional very early on, like, wait a minute, what the fuck is Rob doing out here? He told me he wasn't coming back. And now I see Rob and I see Amber. What the fuck? I'm so betrayed. Normally I don't hold a grudge, but here, and I was like, wait a minute, does Sandra not know what Sandra's like? Because that was an amazing statement to make. At the same time, that's legit. She has always been that emotional person and values loyalty very much. And I think she genuinely did feel betrayed by Rob and was like, well, screw it. If he didn't feel that he could trust me enough to tell me these things, I'm going to take out Amber because he's clearly not going to have me in his plans.
Yeah, and I think that there's been some confusion in comments, and, it's from people that didn't dive into preseason stuff, and that's cool. Whether this is like a real thing, it's a real thing. The way, Sandra's acting, she's not just putting this on for, to convince people that she's not connected to Rob to save herself, which, is a discussion we can have right next, and, I think there's some value to that. Because, one, obviously she did it in confessionals to us, and Sandra is not somebody who typically lies to us. She delights in telling her truth, or her version of the truth, I should say. Because I think she also has a healthy, lack of self-awareness in some of her myth building of herself, and I love her for it. Case in point, I don't hold grudges, are you kidding me? She is a machine run on grudge and spite. Like, that's what she does. You vote out her friends, she'll throw out the fish and then blame it on somebody else. She still talks shit about Johnny Fairplay and Russell. She burns the guy's hat. Tony made a few remarks and she went after him and then made fun of him on his way out. No, she is constantly churning up this stuff. So yes,
and you may recall this, but before Game Changers, every interview she gave was trashing Cirie because she had seen that Cirie suggested Russell should have won the season that Sandra won, Heroes vs. Villains, and Sandra kept that energy for 14 more seasons. Like, she did not let that thing go. She holds that grudge.
Yeah, and so that's what's happening here, and, so it's true. Rob didn't tell her, and frankly, there's a good reason. He hadn't decided to come on this season when they were together. Unlike Sandra, he, I guess, wanted to talk to his spouse about this, about me. I'm going right back out there. And she's brought it up in interviews that she didn't, and then she realized maybe she should have talked about it, and that's why, in part, this is it for her. He never called her either. And this has been discussed in the Entertainment Weekly preview gathering they had on Monday night. So post filming of this season, months go by, this is still an issue for Sandra. Like, when she talked about it, when they were on stage, and like the hurt felt real in her voice. Like, I thought I trusted you and you couldn't even call me. And Rob, apologized. He's like, I didn't call anybody. The only person who knew was Amber. So like, yeah, other tidbits that are going out there is it's starting to sound like Rob and Amber were like the last people cast, possibly bumping some of the people that might have been. So yeah, he didn't tell her because he didn't know. He was, and there's a chance on the island that he wasn't coming back until, Probst called him and frankly probably offered him a bunch of the stuff that you hate about this. You, the listener, not necessarily us. So yeah, it's a real thing. And I think it's going to lead to, it's already led to a battle. This is why, she wasn't going to be working with Amber or any of those folks at all. She's decided, for one, she works best when she's looking to settle scores. And for two, it probably, was good for her. She already has a big enough target. And another one would have been, Rob and Sandra. They're obviously together. They got heads, idols out there. She's taking that off the board.
Yeah. And we shouldn't give the entirety of the credit to Sandra because
no,
Yul also corralled some votes and I was stunned. I was worried about Yul coming into this season. I will say though, in the preview podcast, I called Yul and Sophie as a very likely alliance, but that's two people. I honestly felt like they would be on an island and not be able to control any sort of votes. They would be in a minority and be screwed. Yul, however, went around, picked up all these different disparate parts just laying around and was like, you know what? I just cobbled myself together an alliance, and we've got a majority, and he and Sandra, I'm going to give the two of them the credit. I mean, there was probably some other people involved, but they ran it. They ran that vote.
Yeah, I think Yul could have done it without her.
Probably.
I think there's a good chance he had 6 votes. What Sandra does is, for one, she clinched 2 of those votes by going to Tony and telling him that Tyson was, naming him, which was true.
Yep.
At least according to the edit. We don't know the full chronology. And also it made it easy. Now they had an overwhelming majority. They didn't have to, try to trick those people too much. They were able to split votes, the whole deal. So yeah, Sandra was able to, and again, that's going back to the earlier thing. It's because these 2 players were able to really assert it. Like, yeah, okay, that's what we're doing. And it's interesting because Yul came prepared. He has done his homework. He saw that clip of the poker thing. He was ready. He had his dossier of, plans of attack and all of that. It also sounds like Yul has been doing some pre-gaming. They are a natural pair. He and Sophie. They also both know John Cochran.
Yes.
So there's that.
And also, it should maybe not be overlooked that Yul worked at both Facebook and Google. Aggregators of large amounts of your personal data. Just throwing that out there. Not saying he accessed any sorts of private information, but I'm sure he had ways of looking up information about these players.
Yeah. He didn't just work for Facebook. His job was literally data security. And yeah, he was mentioned in articles.
He was like the privacy guru.
Yeah. And articles in where hey, what happened to that privacy there? And I mean, from the preseason stuff again, and it's weird that we're talking about preseason. We usually just ignore that, but when it's actually people we care about, we read it. Sounds like he and Nick had a thing going on for the season. So it's actually really interesting, and frankly, credit to Yul that he is able to stir things up and get, his plan of attack by bringing up preseason. And being all like, hey, I got no connection. Look at me, blah, blah, blah. I think he had connections.
Yes.
I think, him and Nick clearly did. Whether that was because he's blackmailing Nick with the Facebook posts that were taken down or not, I don't know. And I think, I don't know if he and Sophie talked before this. Her reaction felt really genuine and fun. But there could have been very much he talked to Cochran about, people he could work with. And, Cochran's like, oh yeah, Sophie for sure.
Yeah, I'll relay that message for you, buddy. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, again, great on Yul. And actually a fun inverse of this is, in Tyson's pregame, he was talking about how he was going to use pregame talk, alliances and what people know and make up lies to benefit him. And instead, it's his pregame connections that put him square in the crosshairs. So it's like, Yul is supposed to be the one without any, and it looks like he might have done it better than anybody else, at least, within this group. And Tyson was going to basically try to do what Yul did. And instead, he had to, flip on people to survive.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. I mean, I love Tyson, obviously, but it was fun to watch Tyson and Kim get outgunned by Yul. So,
yep.
Another thing, whether this was related to a connection or not, I really enjoyed Natalie giving the idol offer to Sandra. Because the deal with the idol offer was you can essentially sell the idol that you found on Edge of Extinction for a fire token from the player still left in the game. Natalie can essentially make this offer to anybody that's about to go to Tribal Council.
But it had to be one of the people of the tribe that went to Tribal Council.
Right. This tribe is going to Tribal Council. So, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, the two 100% locks, if you're trying to get the person's fire token, 100% lock that Sandra and Tony will buy it. Probably most of the rest of them would, but you can take it to the bank. Sandra would buy it, and Tony because A, he's got a threat level, and B, the man will do anything for an idol. Sandra, because she's most likely to have the highest threat level, and she's a huge challenge liability. So, made total sense. And whether that was related, if that was involved in Natalie's calculations at all, I don't know. It might have just been like, hey, I like Sandra. Maybe she could use an idol. Who knows? I probably put more thought into it than Natalie did. Who knows? But
yeah, I think they are actually friendly, is what it is.
Yeah.
I've seen social media posts and all that, and I believe Natalie mentioned that she has a connection with Sandra, Brown Girls Unite type deal.
At the same time, brilliant strategically. If you're trying to get that fire token from somebody, she's going to spend it.
Yeah, unless she's already spent it on a tarp. That's actually an interesting thing, because, tarps are really valuable, and I could be interesting, when we get, the 3 days of rain that always comes, if people are like, we gotta buy that tarp, because if it's me, I'm like, I ain't putting my money in unless we're all putting our money in. And obviously it only takes, I think, 4 tokens for a fire, or for a tarp or whatever. Yep. It's like, I don't care. You guys gotta buy coffee. You guys gotta buy all this. Everybody here has to be in, or my money isn't. Especially if I also have money from somebody that's on, exile right now, or Edge of Extinction.
And this is actually a good place. I have a theory. I think you'll enjoy this because longtime listeners of our podcast will know you have a certain level of distaste, let's say, for fake idols. I totally understand it. Fake idols are shit. They never work. They're not useful in any way. People overhype them and say, oh, what if you do this? What if you do this? No. The answer is always no. It's never a good idea. It's always stupid. Unless your goal is just to punk somebody, then it's fine.
Then it's great.
Yes.
I worry that that's been lost. If your goal is just to create entertainment and make somebody look stupid, I'm all for it. I loved what Rick Devens did. I loved when it happened to Randy. Blah, 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 blah. Just don't try and sell me it's strategic, which I think you're about to do.
I'm about to do that. So, because of the addition of fire tokens, now there actually would be an incentive to create a fake idol. The problem is, in this scenario, you would need to have... Okay, so in this scenario, you are playing Survivor, you, Andy. You found a real immunity idol. Now, let's say you go and create a fake immunity idol. You've got the note of the real immunity idol. And you say to player B, hey, listen, I desperately need a fire token for an advantage in the next challenge. Yeah, this obviously has to come later in the game. Or whatever it might be. I need a fire token for X. I will sell you this idol that's only good for X tribal councils in exchange for your fire token. Now there's at least something of value that could be gained from you using your fake idol. What do you think of this ridiculous plan?
You've just tried to add an extra layer to the thing that people always do. There's gotta be a way that this will pay off. And, I admire the idea, like, hey, this is a new thing. I'm selling instead of giving. But ultimately, it's the same thing you're giving. What the correct response from that other person is, why would you do this? Why would you sell this? If this thing actually has value, there's nothing you can buy that would be more valuable than the thing you're selling to me. And that's always kind of been the thing about fake idols. It's like, oh, I'll make a fake idol and trick somebody. And it's always like, I got this idol. It's like, cool, then play it. Because if you're not going to play it, I don't believe you that is a real idol. It'll be the same thing. Like the only way it could work is if you're on edge and thus you can't use your idol. You can only sell it. Problem is that you would need producers to like try to sell your fake idol for you. And if they agreed to do that, that would be way, way too much for production to like, be the middleman for deception. I joined the chorus of people online calling for Jeff Probst's head if they allow that. But yeah, like a 1-to-1 thing is like, and I know you're trying. It's like, it expires. I don't care. I like an immunity idol anytime. It's like, I need it for the next challenge. Why do you need it for the next challenge? Why do you need to win the next challenge? Well, so I could be immune. But you have an immunity idol. So that's like the thing. Like that's always the thing about a fake idol is like, if it's a real idol, you don't tell me, much less give it to me. So you can't trick me with it. And now obviously that evolved to the point of like people just leaving idols around and hoping they're getting found, which is the thing that people are like, wasn't that strategic? It's like, no, that's like based on luck and nothing. Like, again, that's valuable for fucking with people. That's when it's valuable. So no, I reject it still.
Oh, I tried fake idol crowd.
You did.
In defense of the fake idol crowd, my heart's not really into it because I don't give a shit about fake idols either.
I do want to add a little addendum to, my fake idols are always bullshit for, strategic purposes. If Rob or Tony make a fake idol this season, I am going to flip so fucking hard on my stance and just call it the most brilliant thing. And that kind of, gets it. I tweeted this and I want to make everybody, clear is, this season, if I like the player, and they, get voted out or whatever, then I'd be like, what can they do? Their target was too big. It's just a symbol of their greatness. And if I don't like it, then I'll be like, see, they were a fraud. They were never any good. That like, it's just total hypocrisy when it comes to those things. And frankly, like, I know that I'm not alone in this. For one, that's how people are with most things when it comes to Survivor, even though they don't want to admit it. But moreover, like, I've already started to see it. I've already been like, oh, well, Amber, so like shit. Why didn't she work her way out of that? Because there was no way to work her way out of it. She didn't get targeted for any failure of her own. She got targeted due to threat level. And it's interesting that, like, she's gotten a bit more of a break than Natalie. Part of it is because more people are fans of Natalie than Amber. That's totally fair. I get it. The other reason is I think people are tricked into thinking Amber somehow had so much more time. And clearly she had more time. But, how much time Amber had to work her way out of this situation? The same amount of time of, like, every first boot in the history of Survivor besides, like, Jonathan and Wendell. Well, yeah. It's, we usually know about first boots is there's no time. The target just kind of happens on you and there's not much you can do. It was the same thing for her. That's how we're going to play it. When the good things happen for the people that we root for, it was brilliant and, was a symbol of, their success and their all-time great levels. And when bad things happen, they're only targeted because they were great. And with the people I don't like, I'd be like, haha, you never deserve to win your season anyway.
Exactly.
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, around here, we wear our fandom on our sleeve and embrace our bias. This is our bias.
Hey, so since we're talking about fire tokens and all of that, I guess that leads to us to talk about they are doing Edge of Extinction again.
Hooray.
We quickly talked about this in our preseason, but not everybody listens to preseason. And, it would be, again, speaking of hypocrisy, the height of it, for us to criticize people of ignoring preseason.
Exactly.
Like, that is usually our bag. So, yes, it's happening this season. One quick note. When interviewed by Rob Sestranino at that previously spoken of event, Jeff said, we've heard you that you don't like it. We're not going to do it for a while. So yay to that. But how do we feel about, both that they're doing it this season and what we got of it? Because it's not the same.
Yeah. I mean, I'll accept it. I always viewed this as the price of admission for this season. I mean, if this is what it took to get even one of the upper tier legends back, fine. A season without those, probably 4, 5, 6 people and you should definitely know which ones I'm referring to, a season without them wouldn't feel whole. So EOE is the sacrifice you have to make to get this cast. And I'm willing to make that sacrifice because to me, the cast ranks above all else. Any gimmick you can have, a cast can overcome it, and this is the cast I wanted.
Yeah, and like there's other people arguing the opposite, and I think they're doing so in good faith. I'm not criticizing that, but not me. No, my greatest fear always is that they would do something called, a champion season, but not have the real champions that I cared about. What I wanted for this season, what I always wanted this season is, I want to see the best compete against each other when winning isn't a cudgel to hold over them. I want to see what happens. And yeah, if we were missing, Rob and Parvati and Kim or Tony, then it's not what I wanted. And, somebody, it could be a great season and somebody win and be like, whatever, you didn't beat Parvati. You didn't beat Rob.
Right.
And I want to be clear, like, I really think Rob is one of those people. And frankly, his interviews, they made me think that more. And you saw what happened. He wasn't making this up. His wife had no chance to play because of, his legend. He might not, make it out of, the pre-merge either. So yeah. Frankly, when he came back last time, he had a built-in, safety net. He is aware that, this is something necessary for him, and good for him for flexing his power. Moreover, like, I kind of thought it was a little interesting. Like, I do think, and again, maybe it'll break it. What we're going to do here is what we, propose at Edge of Extinction, and frankly, what's become our motto since then. We're not going to complain about how something could suck until it starts to suck. Because it's just, there's no points in being early on this stuff. Like, enjoy what you have while it's lasting, and then, rain hellfire when it sucks. That's fine. But, like, the dimension of people on Edge are actually still doing something. Some people might hate that. They're like, how do they affect the game? But they're in the game. That's why they can affect the game. And I think that this season, what we saw so far about finding an idol and having to sell it is like keeping them a little more active. And it could result in Edge of Extinction being more than just a paranoia-free purgatory while they wait to get back in the game. Because now Natalie and Amber have to compete for items that they can sell to aid, especially those two, to aid the people they care about in the game. Rob isn't going to get every advantage that all the conspiracy theorists assume that, like, Amber's entire presence is only there to give him, if Natalie gets them first.
Right.
So I do think it could add, like, it could be interesting, It might suck, but right now, I do think, like, it could be a way to integrate something interesting, for the most interesting people in the history of the show to do.
Yeah, and I'll say that at this point, I'm not really invested in Edge of Extinction. I'm just fine with it being there until, like you said, it goes horribly, horribly wrong. But for now, it's fine. It hasn't distracted from the overall show. It might do that later. I'll complain about it when it happens.
Yeah, and one note is like, everybody lives in fear because obviously, like, seeing Chris Underwood was a win was incredibly underwhelming, because, this guy just kind of floated in and did something. Maybe the collection of greatest players of all time won't hand him an immunity idol when he gets out. Like, not enough people talk about that Chris Underwood was, like, given an idol by Lauren. All they needed to do was vote him out. You think these people won't figure out that they need to vote him out? Frankly, if they weren't smart enough to figure that out, the realization that the only person who ever came back this late in the game from when the only other time they played it, the winner came from Edge of Extinction, might tell them to vote it out. And I love, like, what happened a lot is people doubted the very simple claim that, yes, people on the show probably asked for it by, like, pointing to interviews like, see, this person doesn't like it, this person doesn't like it. For one, there are a lot of fucking liars in these preseason interviews. And they're ego-filled liars. None of them want to admit that there's somebody that might need a parachute because they're like, well, I'm great. I won't ever lose. Why would I want that? That's only going to help other people who lose. Moreover, like, my favorite was when Kim Spradlin was complaining how much she hated it, and nobody really stopped to really see what she hated about it, which was that Exile or Edge of Extinction prevented Rick Devens from winning.
Yes, Rick Devens, the man voted off 4th in that season.
Yes!
She hated
She
it.
loved it when it brought back the person she liked. And I don't think she was such a huge fan of him early in the season. Probably a bit because nobody remembers that they liked Rick Devens because suddenly he just became a target of hatred afterwards. No, she loved, like, her favorite moments of the season. I think the thing she offered to show aliens about what was great about Survivor was a post-merge Rick Devens stuff. So, like anybody else, she was fine with it when it benefited people she liked, and she disliked it when it hurt them. And, I think that's where we might be for Edge of Extinction, because, it sucked to lose Natalie, but we haven't lost Natalie yet. Hey, another interesting thing that happened this episode real quick. Denise didn't go to Tribal Council!
Hey! First time ever. The curse is broken. The streak is dead. Long live the queen. Yeah, she finally dodged a tribal council. They really should have talked a little bit more about it, but at least we did get Adam mentioning, like, hey, you always go to tribal council. And, we got the flashbacks with Denise going to every single tribal council. So it's nice. We're having a season of firsts now, all of a sudden.
Hey, here's a question for people. If Denise now goes on to win this season, is it less impressive because she didn't go to every tribal council? Because for years, people are trying to convince me that that's like a major achievement, like a tip in her cap that makes her one of the greats, is that she survived every tribal council. And it's certainly, it's better than the alternative. But, I've always posited that it's better to just not go to tribal council. Like, I'm interested in the people that were able to avoid going. It's like, when people really like to point out, like, Eli Manning led the league in, like, fourth quarter comebacks or something. It's like, yeah, but, the guys that weren't always down in the fourth quarter.
Say, why were you behind?
Yeah. And again, it's not a perfect comparison because, it's not, of the many reasons why her tribes kept going, Denise wasn't the headliner, but it's just like, it's, again, great that you survived them all, but it doesn't make me more impressed than people who just, didn't lose all the time. Hey, so in the preseason, I talked about one of the things I'm looking forward to, because as we said, most of the people we love are going to lose. If we're lucky, all but one of them, it might be all of them, are going to lose. But what I wanted from this season is just like seeing people be great at the things they're great at, even if it's just little moments. And I felt like this just these first 2 hours gave us a few different examples. And I was interested in what, if you had any.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on some of the ones that I enjoyed. I liked watching the Robin Parvati thing. Yul showing what he's good at. Sandra delving into her petty spite, as she does. Those were fun things. I mean, you and I have talked many times about how, like, if a season is going to be bad because someone dominates, at least we'd rather watch that person dominate, because we can respect greatness. Like, I will watch Steph Curry sit there and shoot baskets from 40 feet out and sink them every time, because that's amazing. People shouldn't be able to do that. So I'll similarly watch a dominant win and be like, at least I got to see a dominant winner. The season might have sucked, but at least I got to watch dominance. It's fun to watch greatness, right?
Yeah, no, and there was a lot on display, and we talked about some of them. I think the biggest one was, Robin Parvati, not just strategizing, but just like owning their scenes and playing the roles that they know they're to play. But like, I also like Rob at the second challenge. Like, it's like, because part of it also is like, Rob's not looking great, right? Like, he's looking rough. And I don't just mean like the ravages of time, of which I know a lot of, but like, dude is hopping along in like flip-flops. Like, I think something happened with his feet and all that, but you get him out there, and this again just kind of speaks to like his unique greatness at this weird combination of skills. And he's doing the literally putting people in his back thing again. Like, that, I guess, like, fuck, man, the old guy still got it, he might be Superman in the fat suit, but it hasn't stripped him of his power just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if everybody can tell listening to this, but I am just starting to get sick. So, I can relate to that, because I am also powering through with my snot dripping down my face through this podcast. It's right on that same level.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Right.
Another thing, like, just seeing greatness being great. Tony was really funny when he was talking about how he can't be out there, running around. That like his whole bit about like being on probation and like having the ankle monitor and all that. Like it just showed like the casual funniness of Tony, and like the people around him were responding to it. We didn't get a lot of Tony this episode, which is fine because when you get a lot this early, it's probably because he's going. But I like that little touch. It's a nice little reminder. It's like, oh man, this, like, not only does he have all the invented gameplay and all that, like, the guy was funny as fuck. So I'm glad we got that. And then just real quick, like, Wendell built a hell of a shelter. Like, just my theme of, like, I like seeing people be great at the things they're great at. That was an impressive shelter that he was able to, lead them putting together.
It was. I don't care much for shelters, but I get what you're saying. Cause like we said, watching greatness is just fun in and of itself.
All right, so we are no longer doing predictions this season, because we don't want to. That's basically it. It's not even like the extra work in like the predictions post that we used to do, because instead, and we're going to get into real quick, we're doing much more difficult posts for some reason, and a lot more of them. It's more that, for one, we're horrible at it. Just the worst. Like, it took us like way past the merge to get one right last season, I believe. And for this season, we don't want to predict our favorites going home, even when it's obvious.
Yes.
So this would just be all bullshit and smoke and mirrors. And we do that. Like, I got everything wrong in Cambodia. It wasn't that I was that flummoxed by what was going on. It was because the targets would start to move to the people I liked, and I didn't want to say it. So I would keep coming up with elaborate fictions. So instead of doing that, we're just not doing predictions. But instead, to send you into next week, we were thinking that like a fun thing to do would be talk about like maybe not boot predictions, but general predictions, or maybe even just like hopes of what we want to happen next week.
And this fits with my opening theme of this podcast, which is that I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to will this season into greatness. I'm going to believe great things were going to happen. I'm going to put it out into the universe, watch it come true on this show. So, in that vein, I mentioned earlier on that we saw that Dalton Ross had the video of Parvati's voting confession talking about splitting up Natalie, Michelle, and Jeremy. My hope for next week is that leads those people, either Michelle or Jeremy, coming to Rob's side, or them then being ostracized and Denise moving over. And I guess Adam comes with that too. But those people moving over to the Rob and Parvati alliance. Because really, my hopes for next week are just that the Rob and Parvati alliance continue. I need to watch more of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's my big one, too, is that they stay out of danger. And here's the thing, I don't need them to completely stay out of danger. Maybe, it'll continue like what we saw, post Natalie. That they're all kind of like, oh man, they really did something. We let them pull over. And then, like, I'd be fine if they start talking about it again, only for them to wriggle their way out of it once more. Like, that's because be a fun theme and really underscore, how much better they are. So yeah, I'm hoping for that. I think what we're going to get for the next little while, much in the way that heroes versus villains was, the early part of it was dominated by the Rob versus, Russell storyline. I kind of feel like we're getting a Rob versus Sandra storyline that's going to be a thread for the next little bit. Now, interestingly, it's going to have to be some kind of proxy war because they're not together, but I'm okay with that thread continuing even though it clearly is dealt with like real world feelings and such. But what's interesting about this episode, and I hope they continue it, is they're not straying away from that. We saw clips from somebody else's TV show and the talk about the Poker Alliance. In previous seasons, they didn't talk about these previous connections that, at least outside of the show, they would talk about, oh, this person was on this season with that person or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I guess we're talking about it now, and I'm okay with that. So I think that it's going to be a thing that's going to move forward. Which way, I'm not sure. And then what my big hope is, I hope the target on that tribe moves to Sarah.
Yes. I mean, really my hope for that tribe is just that Kim and Tyson find footing. If that target goes somewhere else, again, Wendell I'm fine with, but if Wendell is the sacrifice that has to be made because Kim and Tyson need to have somewhere to go, fine. I don't care. Really, I just need Kim and Tyson to move up off the bottom in that tribe. Yeah.
But like, I could see Yul's like, okay, I've done, a bit of a hit on this poker thing, and obviously took one person out, but also like, it seems like, Kim's kind of like, no poker, and all this, which Like, I think it's true. I literally think they just played for those 3 hours. It's fun. Like, all of us fans do that, right? Like, I was aware of that poker episode too. And frankly, I think we talked about it. It's like, oh man, they play poker together. This really could work out, that maybe, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we did what Yul did, but, yeah, I hope that maybe he's like, okay, I've destabilized that. Now what's the next connection? And that's why I was thinking Sarah. Also, selfishly, she's somebody I'm not interested in. She could leave. But, the next connection is that Tony and Sarah have played 2 seasons together. Sandra played a season together. And frankly, I can see, getting back to our earlier discussion, how Sandra is somebody who runs on grudges. Well, Sarah voted her out. So yeah, I think that'd be, a nice target, that's my hope. Like a plausible hope. I could see it going that way. All right. I think we talked a lot about this episode.
We did. Probably a little more than we typically will during this season, but hey, we're excited. It was a premiere.
It was 2 hours. So, let's talk about where they can get more conversation about this. So obviously the big place be commenting on this post, and that's on our website, www.purplerockpodcast.com. What we got going on there?
We got a fantasy game. We had an interesting discussion about like what we're going to do with some Edge of Extinction related points. We'll have that worked out. We'll put it up in the fantasy scoring post. You still have until the second episode airs if you want to do your fantasy team or update. If you want to replace someone that you had prior to this season, go for it.
Like Natalie, because none of you guys had Amber.
Exactly. Amber was the least popular. We've also got our series going up, which you alluded to earlier, the 40 most influential survivors of all time. We have Australian season survivor coverage. They're apparently doing an all-star season just filled with, I guess, all-stars is their term for very hot people, because from what little I've gathered, it's nothing but hot Australians. Good for them. No predictions posts, like you said. We will be doing some stuff, maybe, that we haven't yet announced, but nothing's finalized yet.
Yeah, so keep checking the website. You could also follow us on Twitter. The site is at Purple Rock Pod. Obviously, anytime something goes up on the site, it would be there. Also, plenty of pithy comments. I am at Purple Rock Andy.
And I am at Purple Rock John. Occasionally tweeting, occasionally going silent. It's what I do.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We're not sure how much we're going to be on Twitter because we will not let that place ruin our enthusiasm for this season.
Exactly.
But again, most people, were as excited, well, maybe not as excited as us, but very excited. It's just, it's also a place where people almost just don't know how to communicate unless they're complaining. And I've actually already muted some prominent Survivor accounts because it's like, no, you're not killing my buzz. That boom, boom, boom. Some of that was preseason and I don't regret it. All right. I think that's all for this episode. This is the part where we hit some music, and for this one, because it was so perfect, there is an advisory on this episode. We've already said, but like, seriously, if you were like, hey, it's okay if my kid hears a few things, you might want to just say, close the podcast now. But for everyone else, let's hit some music.